Welcome to Womenpreneur Asia, and I'm Krista Goon. When I was talking to Anusha Kandasamy in episode 4, she said that someone should interview me and have my story told. So in this final episode, episode 13 of season 1, I'll do just that. I started this podcast to hear stories from Asian women entrepreneurs because I believe that as Asians, we have our own stories to tell. Our stories are tied up with our culture, beliefs, upbringing, and the community we live in. I'm so glad that I heard so many real and gritty stories from the women I've spoken to, all the mad, bad, and crazy things in their lives. And today I present to you my own story. I'll use the questions that I've asked my podcast guests and answer them so you can understand my entrepreneurial path. I would have never imagined I would be a podcaster back in 2004 when I first got into business. Thank you, Anusha, for challenging me to tell my own story. Do enjoy. So, I was a teacher's daughter growing up, and I'm the eldest of 3 girls with 2 younger sisters. My mom was a housewife, and of course, my dad's a teacher. I was born in Penang, but I really spent a lot of my growing up years in Banting, Selangor. And that was like growing up in the 80s, where there was no internet and there was very little TV and radio to even begin with. I still remember that every day when I got back from school, I would start with having a quick lunch and then proceeding to do my homework. And once I finished with my homework, it was just playtime. The whole afternoon was playtime with my friends and my neighbors next door. And we would play until it was about 5 p.m. when TV really started. And I still remember 5 p.m. there were children's shows, and there were shows that were a bit like on the side of education. So that was where I really enjoyed those kind of shows, but it was very little TV. And of course, radio was also just the radio that I listened to. My parents were listening to the radio, or when my grandparents were listening to the radio. And I hung out with my friends a lot. I had 2 best friends who are still my best friends today, Tamara and Jenna. And they have been my cheerleaders and my really pillars of support. And we grew up together in a small town where there was not much entertainment and there was really nothing much happening. So we spent a lot of time at each other's houses, and we talked a lot, we read a lot, and we found ways to entertain ourselves. And I still remember that we used to go cycling every evening, and we'll cycle for an hour or so, and we'll meet up with other friends along the way. But it was really a very good time for growing up in that era in the 1980s, because there was just very little happening on the TV and radio, and we were just left to our own devices. So Tamara and Jenna, or I call them Tammy and Jenna, we were in primary and secondary schools together, and we joined the same clubs, the English Society, the debate team. We even did some dance performances in our school. So while in school, I would consider that I found my area of strength also when I was very young. I think I was about 9 or 10 when I realized that I wasn't really made up for sports. I couldn't do much sports anyway. I didn't really have an interest in sports, and I was quite introverted. I kept a lot to myself, and I liked reading books. And there was nothing I liked better than to go to my favorite corner in the house and just find a book that I wanted to read and just sit there and read for hours. So I loved reading. I loved doing all that. So I found that I could transfer some of those skills into school. And I really took my studies very seriously. And that allowed me to use my grades when I was much younger to barter for the things that I loved as a teenager. So as a teenager, every other teenager back then, we wanted our own Walkman, or we wanted our own mini compo. And for me, there was one more thing that I wanted a lot, which was a typewriter. So every time a major national exam came up, I would go to my aunts and my uncles, and I would say that I would study really hard, and I would try to aim for the maximum number of A's that I could get in these subjects? And if I did really well, would you be able to get me a mini compo or a typewriter or even something like a Walkman? And my aunts and uncles really indulged me because I was among one of the eldest nieces that they had. So they told me, sure, if you could get those results, we will give you what you wanted. So I used my academic results as a way for me to get certain things from my relatives and my family. And of course, I got my mini compo, I got my even a secondhand typewriter and my Walkman. And I was never interested in entrepreneurship at all. So this was something that never even crossed my mind. And I remember telling my late mom that I wanted to study law when I was 16 years old. And that time, there was this TV series. And this is how TV actually influences all of us, because that was the main media that we were all interested in watching. So I was watching this TV series called LA Law, and I was so engrossed in this whole idea of being a lawyer. But after that, I realized that it wasn't something that I wanted to do. And so I changed my mind. At 16, after I realized that it wasn't something that I wanted to do, I didn't want to study law. I wanted actually to be a copywriter. I think the thing that triggered me was that I read it in a newspaper one day about copywriters, and that a copywriter worked in an advertising agency, and all they did was to work with words and creatively too. And that sounded glamorous to me. Plus, it was something that was always fascinating because I love reading, I love writing. So working with words was just a natural extension of that. So I've always taken this path where I would always follow my heart. And I think that even at that young age, I realized that I would rather do something that I liked rather than something I didn't like or something that I had to struggle through. So this was my 16-year-old perception of what a copywriter was, although I didn't know anyone else in my town who was a copywriter. And even my teachers didn't know what a copywriter was, but they just assumed I knew since I was writing that down and telling everyone I wanted to be a copywriter. So in school, as you know, I loved reading and writing, so I love language lessons the most. English especially, since I use English a lot at home as well as with my friends. But we also study Bahasa Malaysia, which is our national language. So language wasn't a problem for me at all. And I knew that if I was working as a copywriter and working with words, I would be really, really happy. So the only experience with entrepreneurship when I was growing up came from two sources, my grandfather and my mother. So my paternal grandfather ran a tailoring shop in Penang, in Georgetown, with his brothers in the 1960s right up to the 1980s. They operated a shop that made three-piece suits for men. The business eventually closed in the mid-1980s as my grandfather passed away, and his brothers were too old to continue with the business, and my uncles and aunts didn't really want to take it up as a business, and none of them really knew how to sew. So the other experience with entrepreneurship came from my mom. So my late mom used to make curry puffs for sale. And looking back, I used to tell everyone that I was child labor back in the 1980s. Myself and my younger sisters, we used to help my mom every night by folding curry puff pleats while watching TV. So there we were helping her at the same time, watching Airwolf or A-Team or whatever that was on primetime TV at that time. And we always started after dinner, after we had our dinner around 8 p.m. or so, and we'll finish when the TV series finished airing. When I got to University of Science Malaysia in my first year, I met Nick through a friend. And when I met him, he was selling t-shirts that he drew so that he could raise money for the martial arts club that he was the president of. My friend took me to visit his booth one day, and there he was drawing t-shirts, and he was drawing marine life on white t-shirts with marker pen. So he later became my boyfriend, and of course now he's my husband and business partner in Redbox Studio. He's is actually he still is very entrepreneurial, and that's why he teaches his own brand of marketing called One Mountain One Dragon. And he also invented his own deck of game cards called Big Timer that we use with entrepreneurs. So he sold a lot of things when he was on campus, and I actually helped him sell a lot of these things during our 4 years together when we were dating. So things such as t-shirts, greeting cards, keychains, and all these things he used to personalize with his art because he was a really good artist, and he even took fine art as a degree. So what I'm trying to say is that I never really wanted to be an entrepreneur. It was something other people did, and in a way, I supported them and I helped them out. How did I get into business? Well, I didn't start off by being in business. In fact, what happened was I graduated from university in 1998, and when I graduated, the only thing that was interesting to me was getting a job, because I had studied journalism and I minored in English. And to me, one of the jobs that I always wanted to be in was to be a copywriter. So when I graduated, I was immediately offered a job as a copywriter in a very small company. And I was very excited because that time it was the Asian financial crisis. And back then, at that time in Malaysia, it was very hard to get a job. And if you got a job interview, that would have been like the highlight of your life. And to get a job would even be better. So what happened was I got a job as a copywriter in a company, and I was quite happy there for 2.5 years. And what I did was a lot of writing, and I did a lot of client servicing, which meant that I was talking to clients and getting their feedback on the things that we wrote for them as a company. So that was the start of my work life. So I was in this company for 2.5 years until I got a little bit bored, because I knew then that the internet was going to be the next big thing. So I was looking for a role that I could actually learn a lot more about being online and learning more about what the internet was about and how my career prospects would grow in that particular area. So back then, I was just thinking, let me get into a job whereby I would have an opportunity to actually work in this internet industry. So one day, I saw online that was a web portal that offered paid writing jobs. And when I saw that, I was pretty excited because I was thinking, hey, I could actually write and people will pay me for articles that will be featured on the website. So I started by writing one article and it was accepted. And then that got me really excited about it when my first check came. My first check was just, I think, 120 ringgit. But even so, I was over the moon of getting paid. I was thinking, wow, this is such an amazing thing to do. If I could write, or probably even stay home and write and get paid for it. But then I started looking through this web portal, and I realized that it was actually based in Penang, where I am. So I wrote in. And I think at that time, there was an opening for a contributing editor. So I was thinking, okay, right now I was a little bit bored with my my job in copywriting, and I wanted to try out something else. And this was the perfect opening for me. So what happened was I actually sent in my resume, and the person in charge wrote back and said that they would like me to write some sample pieces so they would see how my writing style is. And when I submitted those few writing pieces, they immediately called me for an interview. Now, I didn't know what to expect at the interview, but I still remembered that we had the interview in a pizza shop, and it was over lunch, and the CEO of the company brought along his manager, and they were both asking me some questions. And eventually, at the end of that lunch, I was basically hired. So I was excited because now I was really in the industry that I wanted to be in. So I was a contributing editor in that specific company for a number of years. I was at this software company for another, I think, probably another 3.5 years. And when I left, I was actually managing two roles. One, I was a web portal editor. I was a contributing editor, but later I became a web portal editor. And I was also juggling another role as the corporate communications manager for the mother company, which the subsidiary was under. Because my CEO saw that I could write, and then at that time, the company was going to be listed. And he decided that he needed a corporate communications person to handle all the corporate communications for the entire company, which consisted of around 70 to 80 employees. So there I was when I quit in 2004. I was basically quitting two roles in the company that I worked for. Basically, I left because of a number of reasons. One was that I wanted to join my husband in the business that I started in 1998. So I left my role as a corporate communications manager and a web portal editor to join him in our business in 2004. So, but even when I was working for others, I supported my husband's business through writing, as that was my forte. He had quit his job a year after he had graduated to start his own business, Redbox Studio. And he started by offering graphic design. So, for instance, designing of brochures and designing of flyers. But as we all know, brochures and flyers also need content, even though they may not be a lot of content, but they still needed content. So that was when I would come in and actually write the content for these brochures. Because sometimes the client would provide this content, but most of the time the client would provide very, very bare bone information, very minimal information. And out of that, I had to create a proper story, proper content, proper marketing content for that particular brochure or flyer. So, because when there's no content, it actually becomes very challenging in terms of designing anything, brochure, website, etc. So this is where I stepped in and I started writing content for this kind of brochures or flyers. But even back then, I understood that the significance of content in business, because the content actually helped the client sell his products better than just having a booklet of visual designs. But at the same time, when I left my job, I was also studying for my master's in English in University Science Malaysia, my alma mater. Why I decided to quit my job was also because the stress of juggling my job as well as studies, even though it was part-time, was really taking a toll on me. And at first, when I signed up to do my master's, I was still gainfully employed. I was still working in a company as the corporate comms person. And I told myself that I could handle this because the classes only started at 6 p.m., probably like 2 or 3 times a week. And I was thinking to myself that I could probably handle this. But the reality was very different because I worked 9 to 6. And at 6 p.m., I had to quickly rush from work to the university and get into class. So there was a lot of work on my mind, even though it was at the end of the workday. But at the same time, I had to switch modes and become a student. So to me, it was really two different worlds. And at some point, I was feeling that I had to sacrifice something if I wanted to make one or the other work. So after about a year of doing this rushing from work to the campus for my classes, I decided that I should really quit my job so that I could focus 100% and completely on finishing my master's and then decide what I wanted to do, whether I want to go back to work with this company or whether I'll do something else. So this was the reason why I also decided to quit. So that was something that was on my mind. I wanted to finish my master's and I wanted to do well. At the same time, I needed to be able to fully concentrate on my studies. So that's why I quit my job. So when I quit my job and to study for my master's and to do all the things I needed to do for my research and thesis, I realized that I couldn't really study all day. That was not something that I could do all day, going to the library and getting holed up in the library all day. So I started again to look into helping my husband in the business in terms of content. So this was something that I started out with. So I was studying for my master's. At the same time, I was also now looking into the business by creating content for clients who were asking him to design brochures and such. But at that time, he had already pivoted from designing brochures to creating and developing websites, because even he knew that the next big thing was really the internet. And he realized that the graphic design industry was getting super saturated, and it was not easy to be in that industry where everyone was cutting prices. So he decided to take a leap of faith into the internet world and transfer those skills of creating brochures into creating websites. It was not an easy transition because he had to learn up a lot of things, for instance, programming and how the web worked and how certain things worked online. So at the same time, since now I was freed from my regular job, I could actually focus a lot more on helping him with creating content for websites. So that was actually how I ended up being in business, by slowly helping and assisting and doing things that were within the areas of my strength. So this was something that happened, I would say, organically. It just happened because so many of the things were, in a way, coming together in a good way. So that's where I felt that, okay, I was in a good mind space and I could actually focus on helping him with the business and completing my master's. So, of course, the good news was I did complete my master's and I graduated. And after I graduated, I realized that I don't want to go back into the corporate world anymore, because I was already slowly enjoying this process of running a business. So I was really enjoying this process of writing content for websites and doing things in my own time. And at the same time, being able to learn so much because I was online most of the time and I could see that things were really going to grow in good ways. So that was my intention. So this is when I figured one of the things that I could do was write. I couldn't design websites, but I could try writing and I could also try marketing and promoting our business on the internet as well as offline. I didn't really know much about marketing back then, but like everything else, I knew I could learn. So I started with baby steps. I went online in search of forums where people congregated at and talked about small businesses and how to promote their businesses. I also read books on creating publicity and visibility. And then I started following some of the internet marketeers after I read their books. And back then, it was still very early days for internet marketing, but I really enjoyed some of the things that I was learning. And it was very organic. And I was fascinated with the art of persuasion and selling. And of course, much later, because of the business that I was in, I also started learning some basic HTML because sometimes, even as writers and copywriters, I needed to make quick changes directly into the live website. So I had to learn some of the codes and, be a little bit more quick to edit and change certain things online. So back then we used HTML. But I'm glad we started with the fundamentals of the web because there's been so much progress in the web development and web technologies, but there's nothing like being grounded in the fundamentals of how things worked on the web. So of course, I also studied how to write online, what made writing or what made some writing more effective than others, how to craft headlines, how to write blog posts. And then until today, I think one of the things that I'm really proud of is that I have had my blogs, and I say that blogs as in plural, I have had my blogs for almost 20 years. Yes, it's been that long. I started in the year 2000. Some of my blogs have been there for a long time, and I write about everything and anything. Of course, that was my personal blog, but I also have our business blog that I write and update regularly. So blog posts and also what people were paying attention to online. And all this thing was helping me to really learn and get into the idea of that, okay, this is online and how do I want to make it really interesting for the people who were reading the websites and visiting our client's website. About 2 years after I made a transition to be a business owner, I teamed up with a good friend of mine, Josephine, to start a women's entrepreneur group. At that time, we were both new in business and we were both looking to meet other women in business. And we knew that networking was really important in our lives. But at the same time, we didn't know how to get to know other women who were in the community around us. We had also gone through different networking events, meetings, and of course, there were various groups back then, but none of it really fit our needs. And so we were one day sitting around in her shop. She is in the educational toys business. We were both in the shop and we were just thinking out loud. We were thinking like, could we actually start something whereby we brought together women who were just like us, women in small businesses, to come together and let's support each other and let's help each other's business grow. So that was actually how we started Women Business. And that was in 2006. We were actually looking for a sustainable way to meet other women in business and to get to know other women in business. And 14 years on, I look back and I think that what an interesting idea we had back then. And the fact that we actually took action on that idea meant that right now, 14 years later, we actually have a very interesting, thriving group of women in business. We have a turn from an informal group because we started as an informal group. We met in Josephine's shop, but right now we have grown and we are a full-fledged registered association. And we are one of the most dynamic and active women entrepreneur associations in the state of Penang. And what we do is that we support and nurture women in business and help each other's businesses grow. So that was the genesis of the Women Entrepreneur Association that I didn't intend to start, but eventually, things fell into place and I started it with a good friend of mine. And today that has been one of our proudest milestones for the both of us because we have managed to bring together hundreds of women in an association that we feel have potential to impact and create positive impact in the community that we live in. So what's unique about Redbox Studio? Now, from the early days, I really knew that design without content wouldn't work. And even when Nick was offering graphic design, we made our clients' lives easier when we provided content as well. So this meant writing content from scratch. And this also meant understanding what the client was trying to say about his products and transmitting or conveying that message through our design and words in the way that um, the everyday folks would understand. So when we offered website development and design, we applied the same rule. We would pair our website design with website content, which again made us unique. Many web design firms then, and probably even now, didn't offer content creation. But here's another reason why we offered website content creation. By making our clients' lives easy, it helped us speed up our design work. Can you imagine waiting for a client to give us website content when they had no idea how to write any content? Because, as you know, most people struggle when it comes to writing, and most people have difficulty when it comes to writing, and even plain old writing is difficult. So writing for websites is even worse because it's completely different from, say, writing a letter or an email. Because in writing for websites, we have to take into account factors such as keywords. We have to take into account factors such as headlines, readability, does it fit the layout of the website, and a lot more. So for us, good website content really is about persuasion, which means that we are trying to persuade or influence website visitors about the business that they're reading about. And they must be convinced that the website that they're visiting is a credible business and that they should explore further about that particular business or look into that particular product that they are looking at. So the web visitors must also believe that that business is credible based on the design and the content that we put out there. So in our case, we don't only pair design with content, but also with the need to rank well in search engines. And this we are also very different because a lot of web designers don't really care much for helping their clients rank well in search engines because that is not part of the package. They may probably use that as a supplementary package, an add-on to the main website package. But for us, we do take it very seriously, and we believe that a website from the very beginning is actually your marketing machine, your marketing asset. So it must be designed and developed to help you market your business. So we put a lot of effort into search engine rankings, even from the moment we build it up. So the thing about search engine ranking is that it takes a lot of hard work, and most of the time the client doesn't see the hard work that goes into helping the website rank. And that is part of the issue why most people don't really put search engine optimization as part of the offering when they're designing websites. But we have also realized that if it's done right, this foundational work in terms of optimizing the website for search engine actually pays off really well because it brings a lot of good results year after year for the client on an organic basis. Means the client did not need to pay for advertising and yet have their website rank really high in search engines. And in most cases, for some of our clients, they do rank on the first page of Google. So this actually differentiates us from a lot of the companies out there who probably may want to offer you an additional package. Just in case your website doesn't rank, they have an additional package that you can add on to what you already have so that they can work on making sure your website's rank. But for us, we have always believed that in order for your website to rank, you have to start with the basic foundation. And your basic foundation is done right and built right, your website will definitely rank well. So this helps our clients save money too, because besides getting visibility, they don't have to advertise to be visible on search engines. And if they want to advertise, great for them. But if they don't want to, this entire package would help them really get a boost in their business. And finally, where we stand out most is our ability to develop marketing into the website. So we apply marketing principles in our design content so that the website works as a marketing and lead generation machine. This is where we are most unique, as our websites truly function as marketing assets for our clients. Every part of the website is crafted to persuade the website visitor to take the next step. And the website is also the beginning and ending of the business marketing journey online. So no matter where the client's prospect is, eventually we will be using the website to turn them from website visitors into prospects and hopefully into customers. So that is where we have a certain strength and ability to do that using the websites that we develop and build. So what has changed in the website industry since you first started? Well, a lot more companies are definitely offering web design services now compared to 1998. And personally, I've been in business for the past 16 years. And I'll see that while it's easier than ever to start a web design business, it is also much harder to sustain the business if you don't have a solid business model. Now, the technology to develop a website can be as easy these days as a drag and drop. And you don't even need to have any web design knowledge, or it can be as challenging as developing a website from the ground up and customizing it to a client's specific needs. So customizing in this case, what we usually do is that we add functionalities and features that a client needs for his or her business. And this takes time to develop and research because we need to find out the best ways to do it while still adhering to a specific budget. So for instance, just say like putting in a booking form or a consultation form, for certain businesses, or even the ability to accept payment online through a shopping cart, or to enable students to apply for scholarships and fill up online forms, including uploading the necessary school certificates. All these need customization, and a lot of times we would need to really understand what the client is trying to do and use what we know and the best way to do it to help the client use their website as the first and the last place for them to transact their business. So how did I market, or how did we market our business in the early years? So first, we marketed ourselves by doing a good job for our clients. I think that is the most important thing. Whatever business you are in, whatever product you're offering, whatever service you're offering, I think the main thing is to do a really good job and let that good job be your best marketing strategy. And this is extremely important, as there's nothing like a client vouching for you and saying good stuff about you to other people. And also it shortens the marketing cycle because referred prospects are different from someone who doesn't know you. A referred prospect already knows a little bit more about you and the work that you've done. So when they come to you, they are already perhaps 50% sold on the idea that you are a credible provider of your product and service. So I think for us, the main thing was that we did a lot of this kind of good work for our clients, and word generally spread that we were trustworthy and we were good providers of websites. Then I also found out that I could go out and offer myself to speak about marketing and writing. Now, I was a school debater, and that helped me overcome the fear of public speaking when I first started out. I think that this is actually a strategy that a lot of people do use, but a lot of people are also quite fearful of using this strategy because you have to have someone who is able to do it and someone who wants to do it. So in my case, I knew that this was one of the ways for us to stand out. I really don't like being in the limelight since I consider myself an introvert, but I also know that this was a great way to differentiate ourselves and to influence others. And I think one of the key things that struck me was that I had to stick to topics that I enjoyed, because when you enjoy it, you could talk about it better. So I stuck to topics that I liked a lot, such as how to use marketing online, how to use websites, what kind of online strategies that business owners could use to market their business online. So I also kept the topic simple and easy to understand, because you never want to intimidate the audience, and you never want to make them feel small or inferior, especially when it comes to really tough topics like tech stuff. So I wanted to make it really simple and really easy for them to understand, and at the same time come across as a really approachable business owner who could help them solve their tech problems or even their marketing problems. So you want to actually help the light bulb. You want to basically help the light bulb go off in their heads and make them feel smarter after they have heard you speak. So using this strategy, I started to speak at colleges, and I started to speak at panel discussions, and I spoke at public events, and I did this all for many, many years for free. So this was actually one of the key differentiating factors, because when you're out there, people start to recognize you and associate you with the brand that you are. So because I was also the business owner and the co-founder of a Women Entrepreneur Association, I started out with a lot of credibility. And I think that is the most important thing, because you have to have something that allows you to go out there and be an authority and expert in the field that you want to be in. And the other thing that I felt was in my favor was that I was also very easy to work with. I always did my best to accommodate the host or the organizer. And also, I was ready with my speaker's kit. What is a speaker's kit? So, a speaker's kit is basically an ever ready kit where you have your profile. Sometimes it's a short one, like 50 words, or sometimes it could be a slightly longer one, maybe 100 to 200 words, maybe even a CV, and of course, your best photo. So, what happens is that sometimes the organizer would want also a title and a blurb of the talk that you're giving. And yes, a speaker's kit gives you the ability to anticipate and prepare for the needs of the organizer. So if you intend to use speaking as a strategy or to be in the speaking circuit, you have to get all these things ready. You may even need to go to a professional photographer to get a very good headshot, a very professional headshot, and prep all your materials ready, and have maybe even 3 to 5 topics that you really can talk about, and use this to either pitch some of these event organizers, or even just generally offer them out there, especially when you're just starting out and you're very new in business. And most of all, if you do this, your organizer would love you because you are making their lives super easy. So I use these speaking gigs as my way of letting people know that I was in business and what we offered. And it was also a way for us to add value, because I often shared about how people can use their websites better for marketing, and gave away actually some of my best insider tips and strategies. And of course, another strategy would be that we would attend conferences and workshops to widen our circle of contacts, to get to know people and to get to know what's happening in the industry. And also, I had my women business group. So I actually had another group of women in business to network with. So online, I would network in forums, as I mentioned much earlier, and I learned from others in the marketing sphere. Since I already had a blog, I will write blog posts and articles to share what we knew. So I'll publish those blog posts and articles in our own website, as well as share them on other sites that allowed us to publish our articles over there. So back then, it was very common to submit your articles to article directories with a link and a bio. And this actually gave us a lot of visibility too. And also in terms of search engine rankings, search engines love the fact that all your links and all that are coming back to your website. And because of the blogging and visibility that I was getting, I also got paid to coach others about blogging and how to start a blog and how to create a content strategy. So in many ways, a speaking strategy is a great way for people to know you, as well as get in more business opportunities. Now, due to my speaking and writing we were also featured in the media. So we were interviewed for a couple of magazines, and I was even nominated for the Great Woman of Our Time Awards organized by the Malaysian Women's Weekly magazine. And media attention was actually more important back in the mid 2000s, and it also helped us get the attention that we needed for our business. And the other thing that I want to mention also is that we've always created and hosted our own events. So starting with an event that we created called Tech Tuesdays. So this was a free session, and always what we try to do is to add value to people's lives. So this was a free session that was held once a month at our previous office space. It was open to the public and anyone could sign up for it. All they needed to do was to pre-register and turn up on the day of the event. So it was a 2-hour event whereby we would host anyone who wanted to know more about marketing and how to use websites. So we met hundreds of business people this way and aspiring business people too. And it was very well received. And it was also one of the most unique differentiators because no web design company was doing this. They were not opening up themselves to engage with the community or the public or people who really wanted to know more about how to start promoting their businesses online. And so it gave us, again, tremendous goodwill and publicity and, of course, word of mouth marketing. And more importantly, also in a way, this kind of sessions gave us a lot of direct feedback about the work that we were doing, about things that people were understanding, wanted to know about or wanted to understand more about, or generally how people out there view marketing as well as marketing online. So in many ways, creating and hosting events was a really good way for us to raise credibility in the community. So we did this for a few years until we decided to launch another event called Marketing Mojo. Now, Tech Tuesday was a free event for the community. Anyone could come and ask us anything they wanted about websites, technology, marketing. And back then, even some competitors came and sat in at our Tech Tuesday sessions. Now, Marketing Mojo was not a free session. Marketing Mojo is a paid session that's held every quarter in one of Penang's most eclectic restaurants called China House Cafe. And the best part about China House Cafe was that it served the best cakes and pastries. And using this venue, we taught our own brand of marketing. Nick was teaching a lot of marketing that is based on his One Mountain, One Dragon framework. And we used Marketing Mojo as a way for us to teach people who were seriously interested in really learning how to market better and market smarter, whether it's offline or online. So we ran this event for 7 years straight. And in Penang, it was a success as many people don't really pay to attend events. And again, this event brought us a lot of publicity as it was unique. We were teaching marketing, it offered marketing insights, it offered great food, and of course, it offered great networking for the business owners who came together every quarter to learn from us. So what I'm trying to say is that in business, sometimes it pays to be creative and unique, as people love to be associated with the unusual and exciting and be part of an insider group or crowd. So in many ways, I would say that we have worked on our areas of strengths. I didn't know it then, but I can say that if you work on what gives you energy, you can do much more and be more focused and also get better results. And I've always focused on what I did best, which is communicating, and that has really helped me grow my business. What was the funniest or the craziest thing that I had to do for Redbox Studio? So many a times we've had to turn down projects as they don't align with our values and principles. So here's a very interesting story. Once I received an email from a guy who said he wanted us to help him develop a website for his business. And he specifically stated in the email that he only wanted to meet with Nick. So I was really curious. So on the day of the appointment, I went to the meeting room and I saw this guy. And I said hello to him. And he was actually expecting Nick to turn up. And I told him that Nick would be coming along shortly, but we could still go over the project requirements and talk about the project first. Now, he tried to delay as much as he could, but eventually, when Nick turned up and he knew I wasn't getting out of the room, he had to talk about what he planned to do for the website. And he was also getting embarrassed because he knew I wasn't leaving the room anyway. So eventually, he said that he was selling a product similar to Viagra. I kept asking him if it was approved by the Malaysian Ministry of Health, and he insisted that he had the right documentation. And best of all, once he said that, he also said that he had another product, but this one was for a woman's sexual needs. So I felt all along that the guy was kind of shady and creepy, and I was right. I turned to Nick and we both unanimously turned down the project. He kept egging us on, though, to take his project, saying that he had other products in the pipeline, but we didn't feel comfortable with the product that he was selling and didn't feel that we should be the ones marketing the product for him, especially when it was something that was unproven and possibly a danger to other people's health. Now, the other question that I often ask my guests is that after they run their business for a number of years, what do you think made your business a success? So in our case, I think why we have always done well for ourselves is that we have kept reinventing ourselves to stay ahead of what's in the industry. And we take care of our clients. Many of our clients have been with us for 10 to 15 years already. And what we try to do is we try to act as their best marketing ninjas and giving them honest advice, even when sometimes the advice may mean that they don't need to upgrade their website or add on another marketing service. Basically, we're helping them save money. And I often give away advice and recommendations freely, even if the person is just a prospect and wants to know more and is not even confirmed that he will eventually buy. And to me, marketing is a long game. And it's not just about selling to the clients anything and everything. It's about selling them what they need at that point in time, given the budget that they have. I also believe that reputation and credibility is based on excellent work and service. And in website development, we give our best to help the client make more money and get more customers. If I could turn back the clock and know what I know now, what would I tell a younger version of me about life? Now, this is something that I thought long and hard about. And I would say that it's important to be courageous. And how do you become courageous? It starts with the word ask. Because as a child, I was timid and shy and never dared to speak up loudly. And worse, I could never ask. I felt like I had a lump of glue in my throat. And I always felt bad if I had to ask for something or to ask for clarification, or even worse, ask for a favor. I had a hard time opening up my mouth and ask for the things that I wanted. But I also soon realized that not asking meant that I was in the dark and I was clueless when I should be clued in. Not asking also meant that I couldn't be rejected and no one could say no to me, and I didn't have to feel devastated if someone said no to my face. But by not braving myself and having the courage to ask, I lacked access to the right information, opportunities, and connections. So, if there's one piece of advice that I could give to the younger me, I would say learn how to ask and ask often. Ask when you don't know, or maybe you're not sure, or even if you think you sound stupid, just ask. Ask even if others tell you that it's a waste of time asking, or there's no point in asking that question, or ask even if you know that you will face rejection. And ask of all kinds of people. Ask of strangers, ask of friends. And because by asking, I learned something new. And here's what's more important. You give the other person opportunity to help you when you ask. So, and this is something that I learned a little later in life, is that most people think they are considerate when they don't ask of others. But basically, you're robbing them of a chance to help you, to return a favor, or feel good about the kind deed that they did for you. So one of the questions I always think to myself is that I always experience joy when I help others. So why not give others a chance at being joyful and let them help you? And once I had this aha moment, thanks to a book that I read, I changed how I viewed requests and the gesture of asking. I ask for help when I need help, and now I'm open to asking. I ask others if they need help, and I ask when I'm unsure, and I ask if I need more details. In fact, I would say that asking has opened up so many doors and opportunities, and then we can also learn to ask better, not demand better, ask better. So, what it means is that asking also means I'm humble enough to know that I don't know everything and it's okay. It also means I'm giving the other person a chance to use her knowledge and wisdom to guide me. And I'm open to her suggestions and her recommendations. So then, of course, the other thing you may think that, okay, but if I ask, I open myself to a potential no. And yes, have I ever been rejected? Yes, yes, and yes. I have had all kinds of rejection. Some nicely worded, others a big flat no. But most people are kind and would always endeavor to help me. And even when I do get a rejection, I ask myself, what would have made the other person say yes? And which means that what could I have done better? And that's why the asking is so powerful. No matter if it's a yes or no, I get to improve myself. And I think that to me has been such a revelation the moment I realized that I could use the power of asking to help myself and to help others. Can I name a person who has a tremendous impact on me and why? I've always looked up to Oprah Winfrey because I've watched her TV show on Sunday mornings religiously, starting from when I was about 10 years old. I still look up to her as she has evolved magnificently since her TV show days and is still the beacon of optimism and kindness. I also like Michelle Obama since I read her book Becoming recently, and I find Michelle to be truly inspirational yet pragmatic, real and convincing in her values. And I think that is something that I aspire to, that I want to be open, honest, trusting, as well as inspiring. And I hope to get there one day. What is the unusual habit or absurd thing that you love? Now, I have a gratitude jar where every night I write down 3 things I'm grateful for on note paper and fold this piece of paper into a smaller piece of paper and drop it into the jar. So I ran out of space for these little notes as I just used a spaghetti sauce glass jar, and now I use a journal. The fun part of using a gratitude jar is that at the end of the year, I'll put all the notes in a pile on my bed and randomly open up a few to read. And this way, I get to relive my gratitude moments and maybe some of them that I had forgotten. And this brings back a lot of, again, feelings of gratitude, but also feelings of love and kindness and joy with each note that I read. And this keeps me grounded to the things that really matter in my life. What is one of the most important investments you've ever made? And I think for this question, I would say it's my iPod. I bought it at the Changi Airport, Singapore in 2010. And I used it to listen to many fabulous podcasters, starting with Dean Jackson and Joe Polish's I Love Marketing podcast. And I gained so much in terms of knowledge, thinking, and perspective. And the iPod also started me thinking of creating my own podcast. And here I am with my own podcast some 10 years later. Unfortunately, my iPod died on me some 2 years ago, so I have taken to using my iPhone to listen to podcasts, but it just doesn't feel the same anyhow. What's your definition of success? Success is when there are no difficult people in my life. It also means helping others achieve their goals. And I also love Maya Angelou's definition of success. She says that success is liking yourself, liking what you do, and liking how you do it. And so to me, success is a combination of all these different things. I like what I'm doing now because I like helping people who want to be helped. I like helping people reach their truest potential and helping people be successful. This is why I'm doing what I do in my business. We are helping entrepreneurs succeed online. And with a quality website, any small business owner can compete with the bigger companies and the big boys, right? So that's like leveling the playing field. So success is also about continuing to improve myself daily, based on the Japanese productivity concept of Kaizen. So I like this concept a lot because I'm always challenging myself to become a better human being, a better individual. But by making myself get better, become better, I'm also making the community around me better too. So this is why I challenged myself to create a podcast, even though I had no idea how to do it technically when I presented this idea a year ago in Hawaii. I challenged myself to also create our Facebook Live series, although I was so self-conscious and shy. And yet the only way to overcome fear is really to go through it and to experience it for yourself. What's in the future for Redbox Studio and for yourself, and what's your next big thing? I value education, knowledge, and learning. And I think that's the future for any business, not just for my business. The future for us is about helping people get better at what they do. And in our case, it is very business related. My next big thing will be in the act of creation. I'm going to create even more valuable products and programs to teach what we know about business, marketing, and leadership. And Nick and I have been able to turn many ideas into not just workable programs and projects and events, but also revenue earners as well. For instance, I want to talk about this specific community project that we had an idea for. And it was how we took our anger about people tearing books and scrapping books into a project that has to date generated more than 100,000 ringgit for charity. So this happened in 2016 when we were at a recycling center run by a non-profit organization. So people would usually bring all kinds of household products to this recycling center we recycle. And of course, some of this included books. And I personally saw some of the volunteers of this non-profit tearing up the books to be recycled as scrap paper. Now, in Malaysia, scrap paper is very cheap. A scrap paper is priced at 30 cents per kilogram. And this scrap paper is sold to recyclers who in turn sell them to paper factories to be made again into paper and other paper products. So we asked their volunteers why they had to tear up the books. I mean, these books were still usable and people could still read these books. And then the volunteers said it was a policy by this nonprofit to scrap everything that was brought to the center. At that time, Nick and I, we were thinking, this is not right. And we offered to buy the books off them, but they said that they could not sell the books to us. So when we left the recycling center, we were very disturbed. We were very disturbed at the lack of wisdom and logic that was behind this policy. And we returned to the center a couple of months later. And one of the more senior volunteers knew that we love to read. So he showed us a whole stash of books that he had saved from being turned into scrap paper. Now, the problem was he didn't know what to do with the books. And that was when he asked us to think, was there something that we could do with the books that he had saved? So when we went home and thought about it, we thought that we could start a community book project right inside the recycling center using the books that were saved as well as the books that we were going to save. So we came up with the idea of a book adoption center because we didn't want it to be a library. A library meant cataloging books, and we didn't have the manpower for such work. And a book adoption center that we envisioned was based on a win-win-win concept, 3 wins for the community. So the first win was that people could contribute their books to our center and others would come and adopt any book that they wish. The book adopters would donate any sum of money they like to the center, and the money would be channeled back to the organization that ran the recycling center to fund its charity activities. Now, the idea became such a success because it gave book lovers access to rare and even out-of-print books with very minimal cost. And it gave people a guilt-free way to dispose their books. And it gave the community organization the needed funds to run the charity programs. Back then, it was funding a free dialysis center for kidney patients. Again, Nick and I are proud to have started this project, although we no longer run it and are no longer involved in it. To date, again, I'm very proud to say that we have raised more than 100,000 ringgit for charity, and a second book adoption center has been replicated in another city by the same organization. And I would say that all this started because two book lovers, Nick and myself, couldn't stand the idea of people tearing up books. So that was our personal passion. We couldn't bear the thought that somebody would tear up useful knowledge, and we had to do something about it. So that was our real personal mission, to save books. Now we come to the part where I would usually ask my guests about their favorites, right? So favorite food, favorite book, favorite movie, etc., etc. So I'm going to go through that list with you too. So favorite food. So my favorite food is definitely Malaysian food. I usually miss Malaysian food whenever I'm overseas. And I'm not choosy because I can eat pretty much anything and everything. I love Malay cuisine, Chinese cuisine, Indian cuisine. And the only thing that I won't eat is seafood that I need to pick from an aquarium, as I think that is extremely cruel. And I'm trying to cut down on meat, though generally I don't eat much beef or mutton. Okay, favorite book. Now, I have too many books to name just one. In terms of business and marketing books, I love books by Dan Kennedy, by Tim Ferriss, Malcolm Gladwell, Seth Godin, and J. Abraham. I also love fiction written by Terry Pratchett and P.G. Wodehouse. And I read almost everything except horror and sci-fi. Favorite movie? I would say Bugs Life. And if I could add on another one, is Toy Story. Love these two movies to bits. Favorite song? Now, my favorite song is a song by a British band called Breakout. This British band is called Swing Out Sister. It's a very preppy, get up and rule the world kind of song that was popular in the late 1980s when I was a teenager, and it has really meaningful lyrics that appealed to the teenager in me. Favorite local restaurant? Now, there's this old-style Chinese coffee shop in Georgetown, Penang that serves tasty kway teow teng, or that's how they call it in Hokkien, but it's actually flat rice noodles in a rich, flavorful broth topped with slices of duck meat, called in a coffee shop called Cafe 113. And that's in Penang. Because I also grew up in Selangor, in Banting, Selangor. And I grew up eating this wonderful nasi lemak from this nasi lemak shop called Nasi Lemak Pak Musa. In Banting town itself, there are two nasi lemak shops side by side, and both are equally good with really good kick-ass sambal sotong. So I love nasi lemak, and best is that you can pair your nasi lemak with really good teh tarik. Favorite compliment? I love the fact that people always tell me that I'm thoughtful and considerate and kind and helpful. Okay, and what's the one key takeaway that you want listeners to remember as a result of listening to the interview today? Well, number one is, I think the main message, I would say, not even number one, I think that's the main message, is never be afraid to start so that you can add value to your community or the people that you want to help the most. It doesn't have to be the perfect idea or even the perfect moment, but I found that starting gives momentum. And I look back on my life, and I see that I started a woman entrepreneur organization and a book adoption center when I didn't know how or what, but I just started it. I wrote a book. I started this podcast. I started my Facebook Live series during the pandemic lockdown. I did many things because, first of all, they were fun and interesting, but also purpose-driven, relevant, and massively valuable to others. And I never put money as the first consideration in starting anything. Money is a result of doing things well, whether it is a business or community project. If you put money first, everything you do will be driven by money, and maybe you'll also be blinded by money. If you put people and other value-driven needs first, you'll always find supporters and evangelists in your cause. And yes, cheesy as it may sound, the money will come. So where can people find you online? You can find me online at redboxstudio.com. Also, of course, on this podcast website, womenpreneurasia.com. And you can find me on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, and Twitter. Just Google me, Google my name, Krista Goon. And yeah, you can find me on these platforms. I thank you for listening to this podcast as well as to this episode where I went through a lot of thinking, and I was thinking what are the best ways to share what I know with you who's listening right now. And I hope that this has been useful for you, and I hope that you will look at it as a way for you to get started on things that perhaps right now you are stuck or you're just not too sure how to move forward. But I always believe that the moment you just start, a lot of things will fall into place and you will have a lot of opportunities to expand and grow from that one thing that you've started. So never be afraid to start, never doubt yourself, and never think that it is a silly idea or it's something that's not workable. Do your research, do your homework, do what you need to do, but eventually you have to put all the research and theory aside and really jump right into it and get started. And that is how you are listening to this podcast right now. I had no idea how I was going to do this a year ago. I just presented this idea in Hawaii, and I had great support and encouragement from all my peers, and I was really excited for myself. And I told myself I'm going to come back to Malaysia and make it work. And so this is the result of that. So I hope that you will look at this podcast project of mine and go and start your own project. And I hope to see you in season 2, where I have already lined up some really amazing women entrepreneurs, women who are more than willing to share their stories and to share their experiences with you. And I hope that if you enjoyed this and you really are encouraged by this, please write to me. I'd love to hear what you think of the podcast or even the individual women that I've interviewed. Thank you so much and have a great day.